start here. So let's take the attendance. I'm going to take the attendance at the beginning, okay? One, 4, 5, 4. Let's take the attendance. 1, 4, 5, 4. Okay. Are you done? Yeah. Yeah, quickly, because I want to start the lecture. Take a seat quickly. And this is a code for the attendance, okay? Okay, are you done? No, it's open for me. It's working for you? Yeah. No. Okay, I want to start the lecture. Yeah, you can come to me after the lecture and you can write to me. Okay. So let's start. So I think I make okay. So as I told you before, in this chapter and next chapter, take a seat quickly. Okay, it's now 8:03. Okay, so as I told you before, in this chapter and next chapter, I'm going to explain topics related to the second layer. Can you please close the door? Take a seat quickly. I want to start the lecture. Okay, so as I told you before, in this chapter and next chapter, I'm going to explain topics related to the second layer, data link layer. Okay, so you don't need to even think about it. When I say data link layer, you should understand everything I'm going to explain here is between one computer and just next computer. It's going to be one hub, next adjacent computer. Okay, so the topics I'm going to teach here, as I told you before, in this layer, number one, the first thing I'm going to teach in this chapter is actually what we call framing. Framing. So simply framing means at the receiver side, as you know here, this is the second layer. The second layer is going to receive just stream of bits unstructured, okay, from the physical layer. Just bits, unstructured stream of bits, okay. So what this layer has to do is that it has to cut this stream of bits into place. Is that okay? So that means it should be identify the beginning and the end of each frame. Okay. So again, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros. Okay. This is what the second layer is going to receive. So what this layer has to do is it has to identify this is the beginning of the frame, this is the end of the frame. So this is one frame, it has to cut it into frames. So it has to identify the beginning and the end of the frame, and that's what we call framing. So that's what I'm going to explain in this chapter. Also in this chapter, I'm going to explain different ways for flow control and error control, okay? You can tell from the English name, error control means if there is an error, okay? And how can you identify? how can you identify the error and how can you correct the error? Okay, and the very simple way you are going to do is we are going to correct errors by retransmission. Okay, so if there is an error, I'm going to retransmit. For flow control, as I told you before, one computer should not overwhelm the other computers. Okay, we need some kind of synchronization. You cannot just send data with a very high speed, and I don't have enough computational power to consume or to absorb your data. Okay, so that's what we are going to do in this chapter. In next chapter, I'm going to talk about medium access control. Okay, so I'm going to leave it to next chapter. So last time I started to explain the idea of framing here. So let's start with the very simple approaches to understand why we are going to use a certain approach. Okay, so the very simple approach, I can do something like fixed size framing. Fixed size means, for example, I'm going to say every 5 bytes are 1 frame. Is that okay? So what after, take a seat quickly. So that means after I receive the stream of bits, okay, so I'm going to count. This is 5 bytes, it's 1 frame. This is 5 bytes, it's 1 frame, and so on. Is that okay? Using counts. So what's the problem here? The problem is that maybe because of channel impairment, maybe you are going to lose some bits. This can happen. Okay, because of lack of synchronization, as I explained to you before, you may transmit 0, but I'm going to receive it 0, 0. You got what I'm saying? All of these things can happen because of the noise. Maybe I'm gonna lose some bits. Okay, so that means if I lose, if one error happens here, okay, for example, you transmit 0, 1, but I only received 0. Okay, that means well, you are not going to be able to create a frame anymore, okay? Because what's going to happen, I'm going to take this one as a frame, and then once one mistake happens, it's going to continue. You understand what I'm saying? So for sure, it's not a good idea to count or to use the size, okay, to determine frames, because once one error happens, okay, you cannot resynchronize again. You cannot correct it anymore, okay? So this is a very simple idea. You can do it here. There is also a second. So here we can make it like variable size. Okay, so I'm going to change the size. So variable size means every frame has different size. So now I need to know how big each frame. A very simple way, you can put the count, how many bytes every frame has. You can put it in the header. For example, as you see here, this is 1 frame. So here in the header, I'm going to say this frame is 5 bytes. This is another frame. I'm going to say this frame here in the header, I'm going to say it's 5. Is that okay? This one, I'm going to say this is 8. So you are going to cut 8. Here, this one is 8. So I'm going to make a frame of 8 bytes and so on. Okay. Again, what is the problem here? It's the same problem we had before. If there is an error here, and this error can happen. So if there is an error here, and this number count here, it changes. If only it happens only one time, you are not going to be able to resynchronize again. Okay. So if, for example, here, this one, yeah. So this one was okay. This one was 5, and I received it 5. So I'm going to cut it as 5. So this one is okay. This one was 5, and because of the error, this number became 7. So instead of taking a frame of 5 bytes, and this is the correct case, what's going to happen here, I'm going to take 8 bytes as 1 frame. Is that okay? And once one error happened, I cannot correct it. So this error is going to continue. Okay, so still this is not a good way. The last way, and that's what we are going to do, and this is the best way to do it, is for every frame, I'm going to put a flag, what we call it a flag, at the beginning and the end. Here. So for every frame, I'm going to put something, I call it a flag, at the beginning and end of the frame. So all what I have to do, I have to look for flags. Once I find the flag, beginning, end, beginning, end, beginning, end, and so on. For sure, the good thing about this one, if a mistake happens, all what you have to do, you can easily resynchronize because you are going to look for the next flag. What I'm saying? So you can think about it here. This is the stream of bits. it actually has something like flags, what we call a flag. Okay, a special pattern, we call it a flag. Okay, so what happens here, as I told you, yeah, once I find this flag, I can easily, I know that I can cut the stream of bits into frames easily. If something happens, if a mistake happens, for example, anywhere, okay, so maybe I'm gonna lose this frame, but it's easy. You can resynchronize again because you are gonna look for the first flag. You understand what I'm saying? So this is the interesting part. If an error happens, yes, maybe you are gonna lose one frame, but you can correct yourself later, okay? You can easily look for the next flags, okay? But there is a concern here, okay? What is the concern here, or what's the problems that can happen? Yes, say it again, sorry. Error. No, we don't have a problem in that, because if an error happens in the flag, I can look for the next flag. So yes, I'm gonna lose one frame or two frames, okay? But I can resynchronize, so I can look for the next flag. And even this is out of my hand, out of my control. You got what I'm saying? No, the error here is, what if, because you have some data here, what if by accident this flag is happened here? This, because what do you mean by flag? Flag is it is a special pattern. It's a special pattern which is 0, 6 ones and 0. So this pattern, every time I see 0, 6, 1, 0, so this is the flag. Is that okay? So the problem here is that because I have no control on this data, because this data is coming to me from layer number 3, it may happen that this flag is going to be repeated here, happens here. So it may happen, this data is containing 0, 6 ones, 0. It may happen, okay? So what is the problem if this happens? The problem is that you, by mistake, you are gonna think the frame started from here and it's gonna end here. You got what I'm saying? And for sure, this will create a problem. So in order for this idea for this idea to work, I have to make sure this flag must not happen here. It shouldn't happen here, because it's a special character, okay? This special character should not happen anywhere. It has to be only at the beginning and the end. So how can we do that? We do that using a technique. This technique, we call it bit stuffing and unstuffing. So I want you to understand this one. So the idea here in bit stuffing and unstuffing is, every time there are 6 ones, 5 ones, as you see here, every time here after the flag in this part, in the frame itself, okay, between the two flags, every time there are 5 ones, so I'm gonna insert 0, as you see here. So here, this is the original data. This is the original data I received. So every time I find 4 ones, I'm gonna insert 0 here. Then I'm gonna insert 0 here, okay? This is stuffing. By doing that, I can make sure the flag is not going to happen here. I'm not going to have 0, and then I'm not going to have 6 ones and 0 again. This is not going to happen. Okay, you understand? Please, next time, if you come 10 minutes late, please don't enter the classroom, because this is not the proper way of teaching. Next time, please, I'm not going to allow any student to come if you enter 10 minutes after 8. Okay. Sorry, what's your question again? What's your question?
How would I know that this is not the actual problem?
Even if this 0 is actual data, I'm going to insert 0. Every time I find 5 ones, I'm going to insert 0. So for example, if you have 5 ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then by 0 in the actual data, every time I find 5 ones, I'm going to insert 0. Regardless if the next one is 1 or 0, regardless. You got what I'm saying? By doing that, I can make sure this flag is not going to happen here again. Is that okay? So, is that done, or I have to do something here? I have to do something. Why? Because I changed the data. I changed the data. So if you do stuffing, I have to do unstuffing. So that's exactly what should happen at the receiver. So at the receiver side, I'm gonna go through the data every time I find. For once, I'm gonna remove zero. You know what I'm saying? By this way, as you see here in this picture. So by this way, if this is, I have this data, this is what I'm gonna transmit. This is what I'm gonna receive. And this is after you have to do unstuffing again. Okay. So number one, you should understand what I mean by bit stuffing and unstuffing. This is number one. Number two, you should understand why we have to do it. I have to do it to make sure this flag is not gonna be it's not gonna happen here. Okay, it's a special character. This special character it should only exist at the beginning and the end of each frame. It shouldn't happen here. Okay, any questions? Any questions? Okay. So the last part in this chapter, I'm gonna talk about flow and error control. Okay, I'm gonna teach different approaches for that. Okay. Any student here doesn't understand what I mean by flow and error control, the meaning of it? Flow means speed of transmission. Okay, I have to make sure the speed I'm using for the transmission, it's okay for you. Okay, you can still absorb the data I sent to you. Because very simple, I can just keep sending data, I can overwhelm you, and you may not be able to absorb this data. Okay. So actually here, you should understand, we don't have two different techniques, one for flow, one for error. No, these are two different things, but we're going to use only one mechanism. We're going to use only one way to solve the two problems. You know what I'm saying? So you're not, so only one technique or one approach or one mechanism, as you will see right now. In this one, I'm going to do this one and this one together. So these two are going to be done together. Okay? So let's start with error. What kind of error we can have? What kind of error? Okay. So number one, maybe lost frame. For example, I have 1 frame, 2 frames, 3 frames. I want to transmit the 2 frames, but you only receive 2. This frame is lost. This is a kind of error that can happen. Okay, because of the noise, the channel impairment, maybe a complete frame is lost. Okay. So how can we? So two things here. Number one, the receiver has to know that an error has happened. And then it has to ask the transmitter to retransmit the frame. Okay. So the question is that, number one, how the receiver can know that an error has happened? How it can know? The answer is we have to number the frames. So every frame should have a number. Okay. So the way you are going to do it, every frame in the header, I'm going to put a sequence number in the frame. So if I receive frame number 1 and then I receive frame number 2, in this case, I know I lost the frame number. I received 1 and 3 and I didn't receive 2. In this case, the receiver can know that it lost one frame. Is that okay? Any questions? Okay. The other thing is, as I told you before, it may happen. Some bits, you may lose some bits. For example, this, I'm not going to receive this one. Some bits are repeated because of the lack of synchronization, lack of, for example, 0, 0 or 1, 1 or whatever. So I received the frame, but the data is corrupted. Or maybe one bit is flipped. So I sent 1, this one becomes 0 or 0 becomes 1 because of the channel impairment. Next time, if you come after 8:10, please don't enter the classroom. Okay? I'm going to take the attendance in the first 10 minutes. I'm not going to take the attendance after that. Okay, this is a proper way of teaching. Anyway, so this also can happen. So the question is that how the receiver can know the frame is corrupted. Okay, simply there are some approaches for sure to do that. One of the approaches here, you can send a code, a special code with the message. So with your message, I'm going to send a special code, and then the receiver using this code, okay, the receiver can know if there is an error happened here or not. Here, error detecting codes like CRC. Is that okay? So again, So number one, what kind of error can happen? Number one, a frame can be lost, and we can solve this problem simply by numbering the frames. Number two, if there is an error here in the data, in the bits themselves, so here it's a very easy way. You can just send a special code to check. So after I receive, so what happens here, in addition to your data, it's out of the scope for sure to teach the details of this one, but I think in network world you got something. You already learned something related to this one. So if you have just a bunch of ones and zeros, so here I'm gonna send a code, a special code. Like for example, for sure, the very easy way to do it, parity, even parity or odd parity and so on. Anyway, so using this code, you can verify, you can make sure if the data if there is an error here or not. Okay. Once you know an error, if there is an error, you can ask for retransmission. Okay. So here again, let me summarize what I said. I'm gonna teach several ways, several approaches to achieve flow and error control. Okay. And both of them are going to be done using only one technique or one approach. Okay. And the idea how we are going to correct how we are going to correct the error simply using retransmission. Okay. Yeah, the receiver has to give feedback to the sender, has to tell the sender to retransmit some packets. Okay. So here in this chapter, we are going to explain two approaches. One approach is called, this is the first one, stop and wait, automatic repeat request. The other one, we call it sliding window. In a sliding window, I'm going to teach you two approaches. One is called go back in, and the other one, selective repeat. So as you see here, these are the two approaches I'm going to teach. Okay. So the idea of these approaches, as you will see, is we have a receiver, we have transmitter and receiver. You are going to transmit a frame. I need to get feedback. This is the main point. I need to get feedback from the receiver. The receiver has to tell me if the frame is correct or not. So I need to get some feedback from this feedback. We call it acknowledgement. Okay, acknowledgement. So acknowledgement is just a message. Okay, a message coming from the receiver to the sender is telling the sender, I received the message correctly. Sometimes we use something we call negative acknowledgement. So negative acknowledgement means you are telling me I didn't receive the frame, or the frame is corrupted. Please retransmit. Okay. So this is as you will see right now. So we need some transmission from the receiver to the sender, telling the sender if the message is correct or not, and that's what we call acknowledgement message. Okay. So let's start with the first one, stop and wait. Why it's called stop and wait? Okay. So here, what we are going to do here is that, first of all, the numbers of the frames are going to be, so are going to number the frames 0, 1, 0, 1, and so on. You'll understand why it is 0, 1, okay? Because we're not going to do it this way here. In the window, you can have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 until the window size, as I'm going to explain. But anyway, but here it's just 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. So, okay, so this frame, number 0, this frame 1, and then frame 0, and then frame 1, and so on. Is that okay? So the idea here is very simple. Okay. The idea is that I'm going to transmit a message. I'm going to transmit, a frame. And then I'm going to wait. I'm not going to transmit. It's a second frame. So for every frame I transmit, I'm going to wait until you confirm if you received it or not. You send me a, so I'm going to wait. Okay. So as you see here. At the center site here, you sent a frame number 0. So after the receiver receives frame number 0, the receiver replies back with acknowledgement 1. One here, sometimes it's a very small variation. Sometimes here in the acknowledgement, you put the number of the frame you received. Sometimes you put here the number of frame you are expecting. So when you say acknowledge 1 means I received 0 and I'm expecting 1. Sometimes it's very simple variation. Sometimes we use the same number. But anyway, let's do this way. Okay. So here, so what happens here? At the sender side, I'm gonna send frame number 0, as you see here. When you receive frame number 0, I'm gonna send acknowledgement 1, and then I'm expecting now number 1. Then when you receive it, you are gonna send a frame 1, and then I'm gonna send you acknowledgement. Okay, so you are not gonna send a frame unless you receive the acknowledgement of the previous one. I'm not gonna send 1 until I receive acknowledgement for 0, and so on. Is that okay? It's coming right now. So this is the perfect case. If you don't lose anything, if everything is perfect, okay. Now let's look at this case, okay. If we lose a frame, okay. So what happens here, as you see here, you sent the frame number 0. So receiver is gonna send, okay, I received 0, and I'm expecting frame number 1. And after you receive the acknowledgement, you are gonna send the frame number 1, as you see here. But this frame is lost, so you didn't receive it. And because you didn't receive it, you are not going to send acknowledgement. Okay? So, number 1, the receiver does not know that you sent a frame because I didn't receive it. The sender does not know that the receiver did not receive the frame. Okay? Because it is corrupted or lost. Okay? So what happens here in this way is that every time I transmit a frame, I'm gonna fire a timer. I'm gonna start a timer, okay? And then after, if I don't hear from you, if you didn't send me an acknowledgement during this time out, I'm gonna automatically retransmit again. You understand? So again, every time I transmit a frame, I'm gonna start a timer. If I don't listen from you, if I don't hear you from you, if you don't receive anything from you regarding this frame, I'm going to assume this frame is blocked. I'm going to retransmit it again. Okay. So that's exactly what happens here. Okay. Any questions? Okay. What if a frame is acknowledgement is lost? This is the next case. So as you see here, we sent the frame number 0, as you see here. Okay, and then I sent acknowledgement number 1. Then you sent the frame number 1. I sent acknowledgement 0, but it lost. Okay, so I already received the frame number 1, but the sender does not know that I received the frame number 1. It doesn't know because it didn't receive the acknowledgement. Is that okay? So again, after a certain time out, you are going to transmit frame number 1 again. Is that okay? And as the receiver here, I'm expecting 0. As a receiver, I'm expecting frame number 0 because I already received 1. Now I'm expecting 0. But you sent me 1. That makes sense? So I'm not gonna be confused. I'm not gonna take frame 1 as frame 0 as the next frame. I will know this frame is duplicated. So I'm gonna just ignore it, and I'm gonna think I will understand because you already sent me 1 and then 1 again. Okay. So in this case, I'm gonna know, yeah, that means the acknowledgement was lost. So I'm gonna send it again, and then I'm gonna ignore this frame because I already received it before. Okay. This is very important thing, and what you will understand better when I talk about the window. Okay. When you send a frame like a duplicated frame like this one, this is the same frame is seen, the receiver has to know this is duplicated. Otherwise, a problem may happen. Otherwise, I'm going to take this frame as a next frame. So I'm going to think these are 2 different frames, right? So in case of duplication, I have to know if there is duplication or not. And the way you can know it here, because you transmit 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. It has to be this way, okay? So if I receive 1 and then 1, that means you list my acknowledgement. So that means it's duplicated. So I'm going to remove this one. I'm going to delete this. Any questions? Okay. So actually here, this is the same thing. Nothing is new here. Just this is from another book. So everything is the same here, but maybe the good thing about this one, I'm going to create something like a window here. And the reason I put this one here, nothing is new here, okay? It's exactly the same thing, but here I want to show you the idea of the concept of window, okay? Because it's gonna make it easy to understand the next approach in which we are gonna use a window, okay? So as you see here at the receiver, this is a window. We have something like a window here, okay? This is the one I'm gonna transmit right now, frame number 0, okay? Once I transmit 0, so this one has to, once I receive the acknowledgement, so see here, so this one is gonna be shifted from 0 to 1, as you see here. So every time here, that means here, because this SN here is telling me which frame I have to transmit right now. So I have to transmit frame 0. Okay, I transmitted it. Okay, once I receive the acknowledgement, so now I'm gonna move this one to here. Okay, and so on. So every time, so here, the size of the window is only 1 frame. You get what I'm saying? That's why we don't say it's a window, because it's only 1 frame. Anyway, but in the coming algorithm, as you will see in the coming techniques, the size of the window is going to be more than 1 frame, and you will understand why. Okay, but again, as you see here, once I transmit 0, I received acknowledgement for 0, so I'm going to transmit 1, and then I'm going to be here. Okay, I'm going to transmit 1, and then because after a time, so after a time out, because I didn't receive an acknowledgement for 1, I'm not going to move. I'm not going to move from here to next one until I receive acknowledgement. So in this case, I'm going to retransmit 1 again. I'm going to retransmit 1 again. Okay. Once I receive acknowledgement, so you can see here the index here is moving this way. Every time I transmit a frame and I receive acknowledgement, I'm going to move it this way. Okay. I can use similar window here at the receiver side for the expected frame. So here, first I'm expecting frame number 0, then I'm expecting frame number 1, frame number 0, frame number 1, and so on. So in the very beginning, I have to be here. In the very beginning, I'm expecting frame 0. Once I receive frame 0, so now I'm gonna move the receiver to here. So now I'm expecting frame 1. Once I receive frame 1, as you see here, once I frame 1, so now I'm expecting frame 0, and so on. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so I told you here, if every time I transmit, I told you every time I transmit a frame, I have to wait for a certain time. If I don't receive acknowledgement in this time, I'm gonna retransmit again, and that's what we call time out. So now I want to tell you, okay, why is this time out? It's very important to be as accurate as possible. What happens if this time out is long? What happens if this time out is short? What's going to happen? Okay, what is the impact of that, and why we need to select a good time out? Otherwise, there are bad consequences for that. Okay, so number one, what if you have long time out? If the time out is long, what's going to happen? I'm going to wait too much. Very simple, right? So if this time out is long, that means every time an acknowledgement is lost, I'm going to wait long time. Is that a good thing to wait long time, or a bad thing? Very bad, right? Because it's going to slow the transmission, right? So it's going to slow the transmission. So yes, long time out is bad because it's gonna make the transmission slow. Okay, so why I don't make it short? That's what, if you look at this figure, you will understand why it shouldn't be too short. So it shouldn't be too long, it shouldn't be too short. Okay, so it shouldn't be too short because as you see here in this figure, if it is too short, as you see here, what's gonna happen is that a frame is transmitted. Acknowledgement was already sent. Okay, but because the time out is short, so I'm gonna receive the acknowledgement here. But because the time out is short, I will think you didn't receive acknowledgement, so I'm gonna transmit frame 0 again. You know what I'm saying? So there are actually redundant or unnecessary retransmissions. You got what I'm saying? So actually, this time out should be enough for the time. You have to select it carefully again, because too short is bad, too long for sure is bad. Okay, so you have to make sure this time is enough time. It's enough time for the frame to be transmitted from A to B and for the acknowledgement to be also sent here, okay? So you have to make sure it's at least it has to be this time from here to here, okay? So it should be enough time for the frame to be transmitted, received, processed by the receiver, and acknowledgement is sent back. So we need to select a good time out. Otherwise, there will be unnecessary transmission or inefficient use of the channel because you are going to wait long time. Okay. So what's that? Window? It means, okay. So anyway, I'm going to explain it in the next approach, but window here means, for example, I have frame 0, frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 5. So I'm gonna make a window here, okay? So from 0 to 4, I'm gonna call it a window, okay? You'll understand what I mean when I come to the next one. But here, the window, so it means I can transmit all these frames before I receive acknowledgement, okay? Anyway, so it's just a number of frames. I'm gonna call it them a window, and this window is gonna slide, it's gonna move. Anyway, so you'll understand better when I explain next one, okay? So let me explain to you what is first of all here. This algorithm, it has error control, right? Yes, it has error control because we do retransmission every time. If there is a mistake, if there is an error in the acknowledgement or in the frame, we're gonna do retransmission. So the answer is yes, it has error control. But it has flow control or not? Because I told you it's the same algorithm. We're gonna use it for both error control and flow control. It's easy to see here error control because we do retransmission, but can you see here is a flow control? Is there a flow control here? Can you overwhelm me as a receiver? Can you overwhelm me? Why? Why you can't? Because you are not gonna send a new frame until I finish processing the current frame and send acknowledgement. So you cannot overwhelm me. So I'm forcing you. I'm forcing you transmission. You get what I'm saying? So once you think me a frame, you are not going to send another one until I finish this frame. You cannot overwhelm me. So if I'm slow, if I'm here slow, okay, that means you have to wait until I finish. You got what I'm saying? So anyway, so what is bad about this one? Can anyone guess? Why this one is not used? This is just a basic idea. I'm gonna build on this idea for the next algorithms because they are more important or more practical than this one. What is bad about this one? What's bad about that? Yes, we sent only one frame at a time. What's bad about that? Yes, this is the main thing. The bad about in previous chapter, I explained, and most of the time I was talking about N, right? The bit rate. The bit rate given to me from the physical layer. So the physical layer is gonna give me a certain bit rate, but this is not the bit rate I'm gonna get at the end. Why? Because there are some restrictions here. Because you are telling me to wait, don't transmit. You got what I'm saying? So the bad thing about here is you only transmit one frame at a time, okay? You can transmit more. The channel, but you are waiting. The idea here, you transmit and then you have to wait. This way, you can, if the channel can be used, okay? You have some bandwidth you can use, but you are not using it. Anyway, the best way to understand what I said right now is using example. So yeah, so this example, using this example, you will understand better why this algorithm has a very bad utilization of the channel. Okay, so let me tell you here. So here, first of all, I'm telling you, assume we have a stop and wait here. Assume we have the bandwidth of this one or the bit rate. This is a bit rate I explained to before, 1 megabit per second. Okay, here I'm telling you the delay, the round trip delay, 1 bit is going to take 20 millisecond round trip. You know what I mean by round trip? It means this is the delay to go and come back. So okay, so if you have here transmitter and receiver, the time to send one email, one bit to go and come back, 20 millisecond. That means to go is going to be 10 millisecond, come back 10 millisecond. This is a delay each direction. And then I'm going to ask you about the bandwidth delay product, as I explained to you before, bandwidth delay product. Okay, so the bandwidth delay product is, this is the bandwidth here, 1 megabit per second, and the delay is 10 millisecond. That means it is 10,000 bits. This is the bandwidth delay product. If you remember what I explained before when I told you about this product, what it means, bandwidth delay product, what it means. Can anyone tell me what it means? I explained it before. Yeah, well, read it as long as just read it. The number of bits that can be in flight on a link, okay, or how many bits in order to fill up the link. Okay, so the idea here, if you have a link this way, okay, if I can see maybe 1 frame here, 1 frame here, 1 frame here. So how many frames should be here, or how many bits, so that I can fully utilize the channel, or fully utilize it. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so that means it can be 10,000 bits. Okay, so here, so now this is what we call bandwidth. So bandwidth delay product, it means how many bits can be in flight here. Okay, in order to fully utilize the channel you have. Is that okay? Double this number is very important. Double this number. So when I multiply this 2 times the bandwidth product, this number is very important. What this number means? It means how many bits I can transmit until I receive acknowledgement back. Because you look here, so I can, in order to send data here and receive acknowledgement, so there will be two times the delay. So if this is T and another T here, 2 times the delay. Okay, during this time I can transmit this amount of bits, okay, until I receive the acknowledgement for the first one. Okay, so for example here, double this number, so the number here we got was 10,000. So 10,000, it was only for one way, but for the acknowledgement to come back as well, it has to be double this number. So that means I can transmit double this number, 20,000 bits before. So assume this is 20,000 bits before I receive acknowledgement for the first bit I transmitted. You got what I'm saying? I wanna keep the channel busy all the time for full utilization. You understand what I'm saying? I wanna keep it working busy all the time. In order to keep it busy all the time, you have to make sure you can transmit up to 20,000 bits before you receive acknowledgement. Okay, so the problem here is, the problem in this algorithm is, I'm telling you every frame, the frame is just 1,000 bits. This is the frame size. Okay, I'm asking you what is the utilization percentage of the link. Okay, look how I'm gonna calculate it. Very simple. I have to calculate double the bandwidth delay, and that means I can transmit up to 20,000 bits. Okay, this is for the time to go and come back. Okay, I can transmit up to that, but based on this algorithm, I am gonna transmit only 1 frame before I receive acknowledgement. That means I'm gonna, if I use this approach, I'm gonna only transmit 1,000 bits, and I can go up to 20,000 bits. So the channel is allowing me to transmit up to 2,000 bits before I receive acknowledgement. You got what I'm saying? But here, because I'm transmitting only one frame, which is 1,000, I'm transmitting only one frame, which is 1,000. Okay, I'm just using 1,000 out of 20,000 bits, which is only 5%. Okay. To better understand what I said, so here, this is an extension to the same example. I'm telling you, what if I'm gonna try to improve my protocol, and instead of transmitting one frame before I receive acknowledgement, okay, no, I'm gonna transmit 15. So I'm gonna receive one acknowledgement for 15 frames. You got what I'm saying? So in this case, I'm gonna transmit 15,000 bits because I'm gonna transmit. So again, this is just, I'm telling you here, instead of thinking one frame and then I receive acknowledgement, no, I'm going to transmit 15 frames and receive one acknowledgement for the 15 frames. So in this case, it's going to be 15,000 bits. That's what you are going to transmit. Okay. So actually, what is the utilization here? Again, keep in mind, so in order to fully utilize it, you can transmit up to 20,000 before you receive acknowledgement. You can transmit up to 20,000 before you receive acknowledgement. So in this case, I transmitted 15,000 and I received. Can you listen to me, please? Here. So I transmitted 15,000. Okay, and out of the 20,000, my capacity or what? So actually, the utilization was improved from 5% to 75%. Okay, in order to achieve 100% utilization of the channel, I can transmit up to 20 frames before I receive acknowledgement. Before I receive the acknowledgement for the frames or the first frame. You got what I'm saying? And this is exactly what we are going to do in the sliding window. So the difference between what I did here and the sliding window is what I did here is that I'm going to transmit one frame, and then and then I'm gonna wait. The word wait here is too bad. Wait is too bad because you have a channel. You can transmit, but you're not gonna transmit it because you are waiting, right? So here I'm gonna wait until I receive the acknowledgement, and this is the bad thing for sure. Okay. So in the next approaches, what we are gonna do in order to improve the bit rate, okay, or the throughput or the speed of transmission, what you have. So here, I'm going to allow you to transmit more than one frame. So that's what I'm calling about window. So you have a window of frames. So I'm going to, instead of transmitting only one frame, no, I'm going to transmit frames in this window. Okay. For example, I'm going to transmit 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. For example, here the window has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the window has 5 frames. Okay. So, and then once, for example, if I receive the acknowledgement for 0, so now I'm going to shift the window this way, and now I have 5. I can transmit 5. After that, when I receive the acknowledgement for 1, I'm going to shift the window again. Okay, so every time you shift the window, okay, so actually you can keep transmitting all the frames here in the window. Every time you receive acknowledgement, I'm gonna shift it, because transmitting only one frame and waiting for acknowledgement is wasting to the resources you have. You got what I'm saying? Any questions? Again, yeah, so this is just a very simple approach. The objective of this approach is just to understand what is coming. This example for sure is very important, because using this example, you will understand the main problem with this approach. Okay, you should understand what I mean by bandwidth delay product. This is the amount. This is how much data you can transmit, so that you, for example, you have a frame here, you have a frame here, you have a frame here, so that you can fill up the link. Okay. So, and for how much data I can transmit before I receive acknowledgement is going to be double this one, because once you know the first one here, how much time is going, so this one, the acknowledgement of this one is gonna come back to me after two propagation time, this time and this time too. You get what I'm saying? During this time, during double the time, which is 20 millisecond to go and come back. During this time, I can transmit up to 20,000 bits. Any questions? Okay. Okay, so I think next time we're gonna go through. We're gonna start the sliding mode. Okay.
During Ramadan, is it okay to open online?
To do what?
In Ramadan?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that okay to teach at night?
Online.
Online?
Yes.
It's not my. Is that my decision? Can I decide that?
Yes. Yes.
No, this should come from the administration. It's not from me.
They can make.
I'm gonna ask about. I'm gonna ask the department chair if he's okay. I will be okay. Okay, so it's not. Yeah, if the university is gonna allow that, I'm totally fine. Okay, but I need to ask first. The homework